My father's hand hovered over the signature line when his lawyer leaned close and whispered 5 words. "Your daughter is the trustee." Dad's skin went pale. My mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. My sister's perfect smile cracked for half a second. The New Year lights in the courthouse hallway kept blinking, and the paper on the table shook under Dad's fingers like it was alive. For the first time in 3 years, I smiled. But you need the whole story, because this didn't happen by accident. It happened because my parents thought I was weak. They thought they could erase me. They were wrong. My name is Reese Shaw. I'm 33. I live in Dallas, Texas. I'm a bookkeeper and compliance helper. I keep businesses clean, on paper and in real life. I'm also a mum. My son Jonah is 12, all sharp eyes and quiet questions. This story is about the new year my parents buried me and the new year they finally learned they couldn't. Here are the main people so you can see the board before I move the pieces. My father, Randall Shaw, is 58 and owns Shaw Home Services, a plumbing and repair company that runs jobs all over Dallas. He talks big, spends big, and hates being told no. My mother, Celeste Shaw, is 56. She runs church events, bakes for fundraisers, and can cut you with one soft sentence. My sister, Marlo Shaw, is 29. She runs the company's social media, loves attention, and believes good branding is the same as good work. Our lawyer, Imani Fraser, is 41, sharp, patient, and the kind of woman who reads every line twice. Their lawyer, Brooks Leland, is 47, polished, careful, and tired of clients who don't listen. And my aunt Taryn Shaw, 61, is my dad's older sister, retired, blunt, and the only adult in my family who ever told Dad he was wrong. Now I'll rewind. I grew up in Oak Cliff, in a small house that doubled as a workshop. When I was 14, I answered phones after school. When I was 16, I handled schedules and parts orders. My dad called it training. I called it survival. If I did things right, nobody yelled. If I made one mistake, Dad's voice filled the whole room. "You cost me money, Reese," he'd say, like I was a broken tool. I was good at numbers, so I held the business together in quiet ways. I learned how to match invoices, track payments, and smooth over customer complaints. I also learned how my family worked. Dad wanted control, Mom wanted appearances, Marlo wanted praise, and I wanted peace. At 18, I got into a community college in Dallas for accounting. I was proud. I thought I was finally stepping into my own life. Then Dad told me the business was growing too fast. "Family comes first," he said. Mom added, "Don't be selfish. Your sister needs you." Marlo was still in high school then, and somehow her future mattered more than mine. So I paused school. I worked full-time. I told myself it was temporary. It became my whole 20s. At 21, I had Jonah. His dad disappeared before Jonah learned to tie his shoes. My parents were embarrassed, not worried. Dad said, "You made your bed." Mom said, "Don't bring shame into this house." I moved into a small apartment near East Dallas, raised my son, and still came to work every morning, because the bills don't care about feelings. For 9 years, I was the company's backbone. I did payroll, I paid vendors, I handled permits, I made sure we didn't get fined. I even trained new office staff. When Marlo joined at 23, she arrived like a star. She wore bright blazers, filmed short videos in front of the trucks, and called herself Operations. Dad beamed at her like she'd invented plumbing. Mum told everyone at church, Marlo is a natural leader. I kept my mouth shut and kept the books clean. Then, 3 years ago, I found the rot. It was a quiet night in late December. The shop was empty. Outside, Dallas was cold for once, and the wind rattled the metal door. I was closing the year, sorting through loan files, when a letter slid out from the wrong folder. Leanne notice. My heart thudded hard. I read the amount once, then again. $187,000. A lien means someone is done waiting. Someone wants their money, and they want the law on their side. I dug deeper. I opened bank statements. I pulled credit line reports. I checked tax folders. The more I looked, the worse it got. Second mortgage on my parents' house in Plano. $95,000 on a business credit line, maxed out. Payroll taxes behind by $64,000. Vendors waiting on nearly $80,000. And then the personal spending, hidden inside company charges like dirt under a rug, a Vegas weekend, a jewelry store, a boat rental, fancy dinners, new rims on Dad's truck. A charity gala ticket that never showed up on Mum's church calendar. By 3 in the morning, I sat in the office with a yellow notepad, adding up totals with shaking hands. The company wasn't rich. It was bleeding. My first thought was to confront Dad. My second thought was worse. Dad would lie, then blame me, then lock me out of accounts. He would say I was confused. He would call me ungrateful. And my son would pay the price if I got fired. So I stayed quiet. Not passive, quiet. I copied everything. I scanned statements and saved them on a drive with a password Jonah didn't even know. I printed key papers and stored them at my Aunt Taryn's condo in Richardson. Aunt Taryn is my dad's older sister, 61, retired, blunt, and the only adult in my family who ever told Dad he was wrong. I also protected Jonah. Over the years, I'd saved money from my paycheck and small side jobs. I had a small IRA from a job I held before Dad pulled me back in. I had about $72,000 that was mine, earned before my parents could grab it. With Aunt Taryn's help, I set up an irrevocable trust for Jonah. That means the money is for him, and it can't be yanked away in a tantrum. I was the trustee, the manager. Jonah was the only beneficiary, the one who would benefit. My parents' names were nowhere. Then I waited. Quick pause. If you are enjoying this story and you understand it so far, please subscribe. Also, tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there. I read the comments, and it helps more people find these stories. Thank you. Over the next 3 years, my parents got sloppy. Dad borrowed more. He delayed tax payments just for now. He moved money between accounts like he could shuffle away reality. Mum posted family photos online like everything was perfect. Marlo spent company money on rebranding, new uniforms, and a glossy website. Meanwhile, I kept receipts and watched the debt grow. I also watched my family's attitude toward me change. Dad stopped calling me my girl. he started calling me the help. Mom began hinting that I should start my own life like I hadn't been holding theirs together. Marlo started taking meetings without me, then bragging that she ran things. Then came the invitation. On December 31st, Mom texted me, "New Year dinner at our house, family only." The words looked normal, but my gut tightened. Mum didn't do family only unless she had a plan. I drove to Plano with Jonah. The house was dressed for a party. Sparkly decorations, candles, a big roast, and a bowl of grapes for good luck. Marlo wore a white dress and had her phone propped up, ready to record. Dad poured himself a drink and smiled too wide. Halfway through dinner, Dad tapped his glass. "I have news," he said. Mum clasped her hands. Marlo leaned in like a camera was already rolling. Dad looked at me. "Reese, you're done at the company." My fork stopped mid-air. Jonah's eyes jumped to my face. Dad continued, calm and hard. "Marlo will take over operations. She will be the future. We need you out. Clean break." Mum added, "It's best for everyone." Marlo smiled like she'd just won a prize. Dad slid a folder across the table. "Separation agreement," he said. "You sign tonight. You agree you have no claim to the business, no claim to assets, no claim to future profits. You get a small severance. Then you move on." I opened the folder. It was already flagged with sticky notes where I should sign. My name was typed like it was a problem to erase. I said, "I built this company on paper. I ran your office for 9 years. Dad's eyes hardened. "You were paid." "I was underpaid," I said. Mum's voice turned sweet. "Don't be bitter. It ruins your face." Then Dad said, the part that made my blood go cold. "Also, we will manage Jonah's college money through the family. You make emotional choices. We make smart ones." I shut the folder. No. Dad stood up fast. His chair slammed back. "Then you're dead to us," he said. "Dead. You hear me? You walk out. You don't come back." Mum nodded, calm as a judge. "You chose this." Marlo said, "Don't be dramatic, Reese. Just sign." Jonah's voice shook. "Grandpa, stop." Dad pointed at him. "Stay out of adult business." I took Jonah's hand. "We're leaving," I said. Mom called after me as we walked out. "Don't come crawling back when you fail." Outside, fireworks started cracking in the neighborhood, bright and loud. The sky was celebrating while my family declared me gone. In the car, Jonah stared at the window. "Mom," he whispered, "are we really dead to them?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "No," I said, "we're alive, and we're not alone." On January 1st, while other families ate leftovers and watched football, I met Imani Frazier in her downtown office. I told her the short version first. Then I opened my backpack and laid out the proof. Imani read in silence. Her eyes moved fast. She stopped at the lien notice, then at the tax letters, then at the credit line statements. "These numbers are bad," she said. "I know," I replied. She looked at me. "Why haven't you blown this up?" "Because my dad is dangerous when he's cornered," I said. "And because Jonah comes first." Imani nodded once. "Good answer." She leaned back. They want you out because they want one person to blame when this explodes. They also want access to anything that can save them. Like Jonah's trust, I said. Imani's voice sharpened. They can't touch it if it's set right. It is, I said. She smiled, small and fierce. Then we let them think they're winning. That was the plan. Not a screaming fight, a paper trap. We wrote a deal that gave my parents what they wanted. The business, the contracts, the trucks, the brand. I would take a small severance and walk away. But we attached a full debt list to those assets. If they wanted everything, they would take everything, including every dollar owed. Imani warned me, this only works if they sign without understanding. I said, that is my father's favorite hobby. On January 2nd, we met in mediation. Dad arrived in a new blazer. Mum wore pearls. Marlowe had a camera-ready smile. Their lawyer, Brooks Leland, shook hands like he was already celebrating. I sat still. I kept my voice low. I looked tired on purpose. Brooks spoke first. My clients offer $20,000. Miss Shaw signs away all claims and agrees not to interfere. The family will also manage the child's education funds. Imani didn't blink. Jonah's trust is not on this table. Dad's face twisted. That money is ours, Imani said. Then you should have saved it. Eating. Mom leaned forward. Reese is unstable, she said softly. She makes rash choices. I looked down like I was ashamed, even as my hands stayed steady inside my lap. Imani slid our agreement across. Here, she said. Reese steps away. You get full control. You get everything you asked for. Dad's eyes lit up. That's it? That's it, Imani said. Brooks began reading. His smile faltered when he reached the pages labelled Liability Disclosure. He paused, then cleared his throat. We should review these sections carefully. Dad snapped. Skip it! I know my own numbers. Brooks tried again. I recommend an audit before final signing. Marlowe laughed. Audit? For what? We're thriving. Dad shoved a waiver toward Brooks. If you need paper, give me paper. Brooks hesitated, then handed it over. Dad signed fast, without reading. Mum didn't stop him. Marlowe looked bored. After mediation, my parents acted like winners. Mom texted me, "You made the right choice. Don't shame us again." Marlowe posted a selfie in the company office chair with the caption, "New year, new boss." Dad told Aunt Taryn, Reese finally learned her place. They stopped watching me. They stopped being careful. The next 2 days felt like slow motion. I went to the shop to clear out my desk, and Marlowe followed me like a guard with lip gloss. She kept saying, "No hard feelings," while filming a clip about her new era. Mom showed up with coffee and acted like I was a visitor, not the person who had kept their bills paid. Dad changed the door code in front of me. He didn't even lower his voice. "New year, new rules," he said. That night, my phone buzzed. It was Kendra Pruitt, 34, my old friend from high school, now a realtor in Irving. She asked if I was fighting, where my lawyer worked, and if I planned to sue. Her words were sweet, but her questions were sharp. I told her I was tired and would sign whatever Dad wanted. 10 minutes later, Mum texted, "Don't try anything." That's when I knew Kendra was my family's messenger. I let her keep believing she was fooling me. The final hearing was scheduled for January 4th, still in the New Year holiday week, when the courthouse was quiet and everyone wanted cases done fast. On January 3rd, Dad sent me a message. "Thank you for being reasonable." Reasonable. After calling me dead, I didn't answer. That night, Jonah sat on my couch and asked, "Are we okay?" I brushed his hair back and said, "Yes, we are okay. Tomorrow, we get our life back." When Jonah went to bed, I opened the last binder and checked every page one more time. The debt list was there, the waiver was there, the trust papers were there. My family thought they were taking my name off their future. In the morning, they would see my name in a place they never expected. January 4th arrived cold and bright, like Dallas wanted to prove it could do winter. The courthouse downtown was quiet because many people were still on New Year schedules. The halls smelled like old coffee and floor wax. Jonah stayed with Aunt Taryn. He begged to come, but I told him, "This is adult paperwork. Your job is to stay safe." He hugged me hard anyway and whispered, "Do it, Mum." I walked into courtroom 3C with Imani at my side. She wore a dark suit and a calm face. I wore a simple navy dress and no jewelry. I needed my parents to think I was finished. They were already there. Dad stood tall in a new blazer, acting like he was about to win a trophy. Mum's pearls caught the ceiling lights. Marlo leaned against the wall, scrolling her phone with that shiny smile that always meant she felt above the room. Brooks Leland, their lawyer, carried a thick packet and looked like he had slept in his car. Mum looked at me and gave me her church smile. "Reese," she said, sweet and sharp, "let's keep this clean." Dad nodded. No scenes. I kept my voice soft. "I just want it over," Marlo snorted. Finally. We took our places. Judge Selena Park stepped in, mid-60s, grey hair pulled back, eyes like a flashlight. A small holiday wreath still hung near the bench, left behind from December. Brooks stood first. "Your Honour, the parties have reached an agreement. Miss Shaw will relinquish all claims to Shaw Home Services and related assets. She will accept a severance payment of $20,000. The Shaws retain full ownership and control of the company." Imani stood next. "Correct, Your Honour. The agreement also includes full liability disclosure attached to the assets." Judge Park looked at me. "Miss Shaw, do you understand you are giving up your claim to the business you worked for?" "Yes, Your Honour." "And you are doing this willingly?" "Yes." The clerk passed papers. Pens clicked. Pages slid across the tables. Dad signed fast, barely reading. Mom signed right after him. Marlo signed a witness line with a flourish, like it was a fan autograph. I signed slowly, careful, and neat. Brooks kept flipping pages, checking sections like a man trying to stop a train with his hands. Then he reached a page and froze. His face tightened. He flipped back, then forward again. He leaned toward my dad and whispered 5 words. "Your daughter is the trustee." Dad's hand stopped mid-signature. Mum's mouth opened, then shut. Marlo's smile cracked. "What?" Dad hissed. Brooks pointed at the page. "You wanted control of the child's money," he whispered. "But the trust is separate. She is the trustee. You have no authority over it." Dad snatched the page and scanned it. At the top it read, Jonah Shaw Irrevocable Trust. Under it, beneficiary, Jonah Shaw. Trustee, Reese Shaw. Dad's face went red. You hid money, he snapped, loud enough that the judge looked up. Judge Park's voice cut the air. Mr. Shaw, lower your voice. Dad stood. She tricked us. She's dead to us, and she still thinks she can control my grandson. Sit down, Judge Park said, and he did, shaking. Imani spoke calmly. Your Honour, the trust is separate and properly formed. It is not part of this settlement. It is disclosed here for clarity. Judge Park nodded. Correct. I looked at my father and said, I didn't hide it. I protected Jonah. Brooks swallowed and flipped to the next section, the part that mattered most, the liability disclosure. His voice came out careful. Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, by signing this agreement, you assume full responsibility for all liabilities tied to Shaw Home Services and the listed assets. Dad waved a hand. Fine, we'll handle it. Brooks's jaw tightened. That includes the lien for $187,400, the maxed credit line, the payroll tax balance, and the second mortgage on your Plano home. The courtroom went still. Marlowe's eyes snapped up. Leanne? Mum whispered. Second mortgage? Dad blinked hard. That's wrong. Brooks read the numbers off the page anyway, because paper doesn't care about pride. Payroll taxes, $64,000. Vendor balances, $79,000. Credit line, $95,000. Dad turned toward me like he could burn me with his eyes. You did the books. You did this. Imani's eyebrows lifted. Interesting claim, Mr. Shaw, considering you removed her access and refused an audit. Brooks stepped forward, tense. Your Honour, I advised my clients to order an independent audit before signing. They refused. I have the waiver. He handed it over. The clerk passed it to Judge Park. She read it once, then looked at my father. Is this your signature, Mr. Shaw? Dad's throat moved. Yes, so you were warned, she said. You chose not to verify. Dad shook his head fast. I didn't understand. I didn't know. Brooks's voice went flat. I explained, sir. You said you didn't have time. Dad snapped. You're supposed to protect me. Judge Park raised a hand. Enough. She looked down at the agreement again. Miss Shaw's counsel states these liabilities were disclosed. Imani nodded. They were presented in mediation and attached to the agreement. The other party declined further review. Judge Park turned to my father. Mr. Shaw, you asked for full ownership. You signed for full ownership. That includes debts tied to those assets. Dad stood again. I want to withdraw. This isn't fair. Judge Park's calm was colder than yelling. This court does not undo a deal because someone chose not to read. You are represented by counsel. You signed a waiver. The agreement stands. Mum's voice trembled. But we thought she'd leave with nothing. Judge Park looked at her. She is leaving with what you offered. You are leaving with what you demanded. Marlowe whispered. Dad, what does this mean? I answered, quiet and clear. It means the bills are yours now. Judge Park tapped her papers. Final, she said, and brought the gavel down once. That sound ended years of being treated like a tool. I stood, smoothed my dress, and gathered my bag. I didn't rush. I didn't smile big. I didn't need to. My parents were doing enough shaking for all of us. As I walked past them, I stopped and said, "You told me I was dead to you on New Year's Eve. Today you got what you wanted. You don't get me back." Then I walked out. Quick pause again before I tell you what happened next. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every comment and it helps more people find these stories. Thank you. Now, back to the fallout. Outside the courtroom, the air felt lighter, like I had taken off a heavy coat I'd worn for years. In the lobby, people in suits rushed past, like nothing big had happened. I walked to a bench and finally checked my messages. Jonah had sent one text from Aunt Taryn's phone. Did it work? I typed back, "Yes. We're safe. I'm coming to get you." When I looked up, I saw my parents at the end of the hall. Dad was shouting into his phone. Mom was crying, but even her crying looked careful, like she didn't want to smudge her makeup. Marlo stood beside them, silent, eyes wide, phone lowered for once. Brooke stepped away from them and caught Imani's eye. He gave her a tiny nod that said, "I tried." Then he walked off, shoulders slumped. Mum spotted me and hurried over in her heels. "Reese, please," she whispered. "This is family. We can fix this." I didn't move. "Family doesn't call you dead," I said. Dad stormed up behind her. "You did this," he hissed. "You made us look stupid." I kept my voice even. "You signed what you wanted." He jabbed a finger toward my face. "You think you're so clever. You think the court makes you right." Imani stepped between us like a door. "Mr. Shaw, back up," she said. "This is over." Dad's finger trembled, then dropped. He looked around and finally noticed people were watching. A clerk, a security guard, 2 lawyers waiting by the elevator. When Dad realized he was not the star here, his anger turned into fear. He leaned toward Mom and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "Call Pastor Hinton. He'll talk sense into her." Mom nodded quickly, like she had found a weapon. That night, Pastor Hinton did call. He spoke warm, but his words were heavy. "Reese, your parents are hurting," he said. "Forgiveness is holy," I answered. "Pastor, safety is holy too. Jonah comes first." Then I ended the call. The next day, Mum tried again, this time with a group text that included my cousins and Aunt Taryn. She wrote, "Reese is confused. Pray for her." "Randall just made a mistake," Aunt Taryn replied. "Randall made years of mistakes. Stop blaming the person who finally read the bills." After that, the family chat went quiet. And that silence told me who had been cheering for me to stay small all along. That afternoon, my phone rang until it felt like a drum. Dad, Mum, Marlo, Kendra. I watched it light up and go dark. I didn't answer. The next week was not loud. It was worse. It was official. On the second Friday, a tow truck came for one of the company vans. Jonah and I watched from my balcony as it rolled away. Jonah whispered, "So, Grandpa can't just yell at a tow truck?" I said, "No, baby. Debt doesn't get scared. It just collects." Vendors sent past due notices. The bank froze the credit line. A tax letter arrived with a deadline stamped in bold. Dad tried to sell a truck, but the loan was tied to it. He tried to blame me, but my name was nowhere on his debts. His signatures were, Marlowe lasted 8 days before fear beat pride. She showed up at my apartment, eyes puffy, hair in a messy bun. "Reese," she whispered, "we need you." I didn't invite her in. "You needed me for 9 years," I said. "You chose not to see it." Her voice cracked. "Dad says you trapped him." "He trapped himself," I said. He signed. Marlowe wiped her face hard. "If the company goes under, we lose the house. We lose everything." I nodded. "That's what debt does." Then she asked the question I expected. "Can you come back just to fix the books?" I thought of Dad calling me dead. I thought of Mum's sweet voice telling me bitterness ruined my face. I thought of the folder shoved at me on New Year's Eve like I was garbage. "No," I said. "I'm done being your backup plan." Her eyes turned angry. "So you're going to let us burn?" I kept my voice even. "I'm going to let you live with your choices." She left without another word. Mum tried a different door. Jonah. She mailed him a card with $20 and a note that said, "Grandma misses you." Jonah read it and asked, "Is this a bribe?" "It's a hook," I told him. "You don't have to bite." Aunt Taryn came over one night and sat at my kitchen table like she owned it. "Your father is telling the family you stole from him," she said. I poured her coffee. "Of course he is." Taryn leaned in. "Want me to correct them?" I shook my head. "People who believe him without asking don't deserve my energy." Taryn smiled. "Good." Kendra texted me a long apology. She said she didn't mean to pass messages. She said she just wanted peace. I didn't reply. Peace built on betrayal is just quiet damage. 2 weeks later, Dad came to my door. He looked older, not in a soft way. His shoulders were lower, his eyes were dark, his new blazer was gone. He stood in the hall like a man who had finally run out of lies. "Reese," he said, voice rough, "we need to talk." I kept the chain on the door. "We already talked," I said, "at dinner." His jaw twitched. "You ruined us," I said. "You ruined you," he swallowed. I didn't know it was that bad. I stared at him. "You didn't want to know." He tried to step closer, then stopped when the chain rattled. "If you come back, maybe we can save the company," I asked. "Are you here for Jonah?" Dad looked away. "I want my grandson to be okay." "He is okay," I said, "because I made sure." Dad's voice turned sharp again, like anger was the only coat he owned. "You think you're better than us now?" I shook my head. "No, I think I'm free." He breathed out slow. "Your mother is sick with worry," I answered. "She was fine when she called me dead." Dad flinched like the words hit him harder than any bill. For a second, he looked small. Then pride came back into his eyes. "Watch your mouth," he muttered. I let a beat of silence pass. "Goodbye, Dad," I said, and closed the door. Jonah came out of his room and asked, "Was that Grandpa?" "Yes," I said. "What did he want?" "Control," I said. "He always does." Jonah sat beside me. His shoulders were tight, but his voice was steady. "Do you miss them?" I thought for a moment. "I miss the parents I wished they were," I said. "I don't miss the people they chose to be." Jonah nodded, like he understood more than a kid should have to. That winter, I went back to school at night and finished my accounting degree. During the day, I started my own small bookkeeping service in Dallas. Nothing flashy, no fake success, just clean numbers and honest work. My first client was a small taco place near Deep Ellum. The owner said, "I don't trust people with money." I smiled. Good. Trust math instead. When I got my first payment under my own business name, I framed the receipt and hung it on my wall. Not because it was huge, but because it was mine. On the last day of January, Jonah and I stood by the Trinity River and watched the skyline glitter. He slipped his hand into mine and said, "Mum, are we okay for real?" I squeezed his fingers. "We are okay," I said. "And we're going to be better than okay." That night, I checked Jonah's trust papers one more time. Safe, untouched, future intact. My parents told me I was dead to them, but when they recognized my name on those papers, they learned the truth too late. Dead people don't protect their kids. Dead people don't build new lives. I did both. Thank you so much for being here and supporting me. I truly appreciate every like, every comment, and every subscribe. It means more than you know, and it motivates me to keep bringing you stronger, more emotional, and more satisfying stories. If you already subscribed, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please keep taking an interest in the channel, keep coming back, and keep sharing your thoughts with me in the comments. And if you're watching this channel for the first time, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Also, make sure you check out a new video on the channel right now. There are more powerful stories waiting for you. Goodbye.